So we just created our centered 4 boxes, and if we look at the code again, we see here that we have width and we are using this row wrapper, but again we had to set a specific width for it to control it pretty much in some cases. The 4 boxes I created down here I did with each by their own, so we have background colors, height, margin, bottom, and so on and so on. What I wanted to do now is I wanted to show you some of the things that can be really tricky with this if you do it like so, using a flex like this. So if I, in some case, if I wanted to change the size of these boxes, the width at least, I would go to my box and change this to 200 to 200 and so on. So I click save, go back to my browser, and I hit refresh. So now you can see they're actually being put on each block, which is also cool. That's one way to actually make it look like so. But if you still wanted to have one here and one here, we would have to change the width in our document up here, so 400 instead. So now that will fit together and we could have 2 more down here. So this is ways of using Flexbox to contain things. We also have another possibilities other than using Flexboxes. We have something called grid, and grid is being used a lot in design as well. So instead of having, sorry if it went too fast, inside our container element, I'm just deleting everything. And I'm going to write display grid. Grid is basically dividing the page up into equal size areas. So there's something called a 12 grid design layout that you can locate online and see what it actually means, and many designers use this to design web pages. The grid is something we can use as well, and it's sort of similar to the flex we just used, and as I mentioned in the previous video about columns, we're going to use these to control elements inside of it. So we're creating a grid which is basically blocks, kind of like what we did, and then we're going to assign them values. And in the case where we want to have, like we had as the previous one, box 1 and then box 2 just next to it, box 4 and box 3. So we're going to do something called 1FR, which is a 1 fraction, and we're going to do space and 1 fraction. I'm going to show you quickly what this actually does to the design. So click save. Oh, I have to redo my width for the one that was 200. But now you can see it looks exactly the same as the flex we just did before. But I didn't have to do any width to this. So this is a more responsive way of doing it. But you don't have to assign a width, so it's easier for us to change the layout of a page with using these columns or this grid template columns here. Fraction just means, if you look at the page, I'm telling it in this column it needs to have 1 part, and in this column over here, which is the blue and the gray one, we have the second part. So for the space that exists, in this case from here to here, this is 100% of in this case, and we're just telling the fraction to use 1, 1 each. So you get half of it, you get half of it. If I use, for example, 2 in the first column, let's check what actually is it, then we will have a space between the 2, because 1 actually uses, oh sorry, the first column I created actually uses all this space here, and the blue one uses, so this is basically column 1. And column 2 exists over here, and I can just continue to add upon this. So if I wanted to use even more, the space will grow again. So now column 1 is all of this, and the other column is over here. So now I could actually start just changing. For example, let's go to 1. Now instead of being 100, I can add 300, and now you can see it still fits inside of this. So box 1 suddenly goes all the way over here. Box 2 is still here, box 3 is here, and we could actually change box 3's width to 200. So now our design has even more possibilities, and it's easier for you to change and have the layout completed for you. These two, display, flex and grid, will be using them a lot going forward because they're really easy to start structuring and changing your site and do prototype testing and so on.